Roughly square the ends. Scribe it first and then saw. Here Tom is demonstrating the sawing part using one of his homemade saws. Here Tom is squaring the board edges with a plane. This must be done because the board was rough sawn and edged on a mill. He's using a small square to check after he stops planing. And then if it needs to be adjusted, he will continue planing more. Next, the face of the rough sawn board is flattened with a plane. Tom is doing all of this for this particular project, as I am still learning and I am still painfully slow at this process. It actually takes a bit of experience and a bit of strength to plane this much material off at a time. Now Tom is scribing the board to establish the finished board thickness. Now he's going to plane the outside edges of the board surface first, as that makes it easier to plane the rest of the board down to the desired thickness without overrunning the established line. Each rough sawn board is prepared in this manner. Plane the board ends and check with a square. Regardless of the type of saw used, this will assure a perfectly square surface. So even if you use power tools, this is probably an important step. Measure and mark the lengths of the two end pieces of the trug. After you measure, you're going to scribe against a square with a sharp knife, as Tom is doing here. First he's marking it with a pencil. Then he's going to deepen that line with a sharp knife. Then he's going to cut into that line at a slight angle just beyond the line, about a 1/32 of an inch at an angle, so that the deepest part of the cut is right on the line. This helps the saw to stay on the line when sawing. Tom takes it over and tightens the saw blade on one of his homemade saws. And we will probably make a homemade saw video in the future. So we will let you know when that comes up. Once again, the cut edges are replaned and checked with a square. One of the goals of our frugal homestead is to also make many of our own tools. In this project, the rabbets are being cut on the inside faces of the short sides of the truck. Tom marked that width of the rabbet with the board that's going to be the bottom, because that's the board that's going to fit into the rabbet. He's using a homemade marking gauge, and then he's going to mark the other board with the exact same adjustment that he determined for the first board. Again, he will scribe the lines and then deepen them from probably the inside. And this helps in, once again, keeping the saw, which he's using here, on the line. And he's going to scribe down to the thickness of the rabbet. In a rabbet joint, the rabbet only goes approximately 1/3 to 1/2 into the depth of the board. Here, Tom is using a chisel to remove most of the material of the rabbet. He's chiseling just down to the pre-marked depth and into the saw line that was sawn exactly to the depth. That keeps the chisel from chiseling out the rest of the board. Then he uses a rabbet plane to smooth it out.
Yep.
To find the center of a board, measure the board with length A. Length B is A divided by 2. Measure length B from the outsides of the board into the board. Mark point B from both sides. And then, as you see I'm doing here, scribe in between those two lines. And that gives you a pretty exact center. Next, I measure and mark the point where I want the top of the hand grip opening to be cut. Then I take my protractor and I mark the inside 90-degree mark on that point so that I can trace out my hand grip. I drilled a hole first in this plywood in order to be able to thread the coping saw point through. Then I saw it. Here I smooth the cut with a file. When I'm done with this, I will cut notches in the top and bottom of the pattern along the center line so that I can use those notches to line up the pattern onto the actual pieces where the hand grip is to be cut. Mark the center line of the Trug short side pieces in order to place the hand grip pattern. My edge to approximate center marks are a bit short, but I was able to eyeball it and get the exact center anyways. In the future, I'll be a little more careful with that process. Here I use a compass to draw the rounded arch for the top edge of the Trug sides. Tom drills a hole in order to be able to start the Trug handle grip cut, then uses a jigsaw to cut it out. He's not cutting the workbench, he's cutting into a dog, that space at the end of the workbench. Tom now cuts the top arch of the sides of the Trug. Yes, we use power tools on occasion, some, but we really limit our use. So we use the jigsaw quite a bit, a drill, a driver, and of course the mill is a power tool. Tom is using the side of a small chisel to clean up the sawed edge, and then uses a plane to smooth it into a very rounded arch and edge. To further continue rounding the sides, one could use a spoke shave, as Tom is demonstrating here, or one could simply file it, use sandpaper if you don't happen to have a spoke shave. Or if you're really careful, you can still use a small chisel to do this. Keep your chisels really sharp, like all tools, and they will work better. I smooth the hand grip edges and interior with a file. using a chisel to further smooth the hand-gripped edges out. When I go on the arched part, I will work from the center top of the arch out towards the edges, and that will always work better. I use a fairly delicate touch, as a chisel can take a whole lot of material off if you're not careful. So this is a tool you probably should practice with on scrap pieces of wood till you get the hang of it. Just like carving tools, the same thing. You have to practice with these tools a bit to understand how much pressure is needed. I finish off with sandpaper, and then for the very top of the arch, I will be using a foam sanding block as they go around the curved surfaces really nicely. And it's just to give that final little softness to the surface. Tom glues the short sides to the Trug bottom, placing the glue into the Rabbets. In this rustic Trug, nails will also be used. He's already pre-drilled the nail holes before gluing. Then just simply pounds those nails in. The pre-drilled holes assist in keeping the nails from driving in crooked. He has the bottom clamped in the vise that he made for his workbench. After nailing, Tom uses a nail set to just drive the tops of the nails just below the surface of the wood. Okay, the length of the side pieces is most accurately determined by scribing. I did line up the unscribed end carefully with the edge. Then Tom just simply glues that piece on. And again, he's also going to use nails, and the holes have already been pre-drilled. And following this, of course, you will set them with the nail set. Okay, the Trug construction is now complete, and I'm just spinning it around so that you can see it. Okay, our Trug is now primed and painted, and it's ready for the fun part, the decorating part, if you so choose. Now, I'm going to probably decorate all four sides with the same motif, which I've already selected from my collection of motifs. I'm using a pine cone motif. This is a drawing I made a long time ago, obviously a pine cone motif and very stylized. And this is what I'm choosing to decorate my Trug with. Now, I also wanted to be able to reverse this design. So what I simply did, because I don't currently have a light box, is I stuck it on the window and traced on the other side, getting the opposite and reverse image. So that's a simple way you can do that if you don't have a light box. Okay, after I made my copies, I made sure that they were going to fit. And if they didn't fit, I can always reduce or enlarge them on my copy machine. So, number one is I found the center of the side that I wanted to place the design on. And then I marked it with a contrasting, in this case, white pencil, very lightly. I can wash that off later. I used a square to get it vertical. And then I started playing with my designs, placing them on there. Now I needed to stay within the boundaries of my line and edge. So I found a point where I could stick the base of this design, which is here, and then another key point, which I marked here, which was the highest point. And I marked a little indicator mark there so that when I go to tape this on to transfer the design, I have it exactly lined up evenly on both sides. Next, in order to place the design on there, I'm going to do this. My preferred method is to use a slice of or piece of sewing transfer paper. And I like to tape it on there. Okay, I'm ready to transfer my designs. Now, as I said before, I put indicator marks on the base of the design, which in my situation is here, and the very top of my design, which is there. Now, to put my sewing transfer paper, I'm going to leave just a bit of those marks showing so that I can line up my drawing. I'm going to tape this in place with painter's tape. Then I'm going to take my design, and I have my right. I marked right and left on my design so I wouldn't confuse myself. I'm going to line that up, my base with my base mark. And I'm going to line my top with my top mark. All right, that'll do. Then I simply take, I like taking a red pen. I simply, oops, that's not quite level. A little uneven. I have to adjust that slightly. Okay, I got it stretched out better now. And I'm going to start tracing my design. I usually go from what's furthest away from me to closest. Now I see my design does overlap the center. I'm not going to worry about that. I'll hand paint those in later because it's just a simple line. But I will give myself the start of those lines. And I'm using the red pen on my drawing because that's the way I can see where I am. And when I do this, I try to keep my wrist off of the drawing because the transfer paper is rather sensitive and I don't want to get extra marks that I don't need. Alternately, one could have cut a stencil out of cardstock, but frankly, I'm not very good at cutting stencils. And I just find it, for me, it's easier just to transfer and then just hand paint. The type of paint that you use is up to your preferences. Sometimes I use casein, which has a beautiful velvety texture and it's easy to work with, but it takes about a month for it to really cure. So if you want to use your item right away, you probably don't want to use that type of paint. At other times, I'll just use acrylic paint, which tends to be shiny, but you can use a matte medium to keep it from getting shiny. And at this point, there's probably matte finished acrylics on the market. I just don't happen to own them. I do, however, have matte medium. That's probably what I'm going to use for this project because this one is for a gift for someone and I need to get it done. So I just go along and this is what I do until I have the entire design transferred. And what I like to do is I like to go ahead and paint the design right after I transfer it. Then I'll do the other side. Then I'll do the opposite side of the box in this case. And I'm probably going to do the sides too. But the transfer ink isn't that robust, so I don't want to smear it, so I just paint it right away. All right, so I'll see you on the other side when I start painting. Okay, this half of the design is transferred now, and I will paint it, and to keep it from getting any more smudge than it's already gotten. And I have mixed up acrylic paint, a little bit of matte medium, and now I'm ready to get started. So you'll see a little bit of this painting, and then you'll see the finished painting of this side in a little bit. I don't mind going right over that center line, because when I do the other side, I'll do the same thing. And at the end, when the paint is thoroughly dry, I can clean up the rest of the smudge with a cloth and damp and water. So I'm not too worried about it. And I'm not too worried about that I get these things so thick, because I'm going to go over them with white a little bit so that it looks like it has some snow on it. So anyways, I just proceed like this, and I'm trying to keep my hand from touching the transferred design, because it is rather delicate. So you just proceed until you're done. And I will see you when I'm finished. Okay, the green is done, and I'm ready to start painting the stems, and they are going to be brown. I didn't happen to have any brown paint, but it's easy enough to mix. I just used a cad orange and a phthalo turquoise, and that makes a rather warm, kind of greenish brown. And that will be just fine for this application. I'll just work slowly and methodically till I get it done. Knowing that because I hand mix these colors, there'll be some variation from one part to the next, but that's just fine, because in nature there's quite a bit of variation. Do I follow the lines exactly? I try to, but it's not necessary. After all, this is painting and not drawing. If you want a less painterly look, of course you would actually go ahead and cut the stencil, and then you get more of a stenciled look. But that's depending on what you want to do. You're free to do it however you want to do it. And I'll just continue this on till the end. I'm actually going to do the white next, because it's lighter and it's hard to cover. It's hard for the white to cover over a darker color. So I'm going to quit the brown there, and I am going to go to white. Clean my brush, wipe it off, mix my white, and I used matte medium because I didn't have matte acrylic. But that's all right. Let's see. And the reason why I'm doing them white is because on a snowy day, the tips would collect the new fallen snow. So, since I'm going for a winter scene here, or a winter feel. That's how I'm going to do it. So I'll see you when I get the rest of the white all finished. Okay, now to really make this white pop out, I'm going to just outline the very tops of each section of the pine cone, and that will make the white pop out, because if you've actually studied a pine cone, the little bottom part actually sticks out from the pine cone, because this is where it attaches to the little center thing that it's attached to. Anyways, the brown that I mixed up will just make that pop ever so slightly. And you don't need to do a lot here. This is just simple. Remember, it's still stylized, and you just want to give a little depth to the stylized design. And I think that adds a nice little finishing touch to it. And you can see already how it's already popping out there. Now, how do I know all this stuff? Well, I've been painting my entire life and observing art, so. And I'm just going to continue on till I'm finished with this side, let it dry, and then I'm going to put the design on this side. And then when that dries, I will turn the Trug over and do the opposite long face. And that's probably all I'm going to do on this Trug. So I'll see you on the other side. This Trug is now finished and is ready to give away. Please like and subscribe and comment below. Thank you so much for watching.